The Childhood of Jesus by Jakob Lorber, page 230, chapter 165. Christophorus, the Giant Fisherman. From this event onward, another half year went by very peacefully, and nothing miraculous took place. For the little child, by means of his inner power, scrupulously avoided everything which might have given occasion for any miracle. He was lively and played with the other children when these had time. Otherwise he much preferred to go about with James, and talked with him quite intelligently when they were alone. But with the other children he talked in the manner of a child 2 years old. In that region there lived an emigrant Jew who made fishing in the nearby sea his means of livelihood. This Jew was of very great stature and was tremendously strong. On the morning of a day before the Sabbath, soon after breakfast, James took the little child and with Joseph's permission went to visit this Jew who lived a good hour away from Joseph's house in a straight line. James went because this Jew had already invited him a number of times, and because the little child had secretly told him to go there. When James with the little child arrived at the fisherman's house, the latter was highly pleased and promptly served James a well-prepared fish. James ate thereof with great pleasure, and gave especially selected little pieces to his little brother to eat. And the little child ate the small portions which James put in his mouth with visible appetite. This made the fisherman so happy that he was inadvertently touched to tears thereby. James soon wanted to go home again, but the fisherman entreated him to remain with him for the day, and in the evening he promised, "I will carry you home along with your dearest little brother. See, you no doubt walked for an hour and a half because you had to walk around this inlet of the sea, which is very shallow throughout. But I am nearly 2 fathoms tall. The water hardly comes up to my body in its deepest part. I shall take you and the child on my arm, wade through the inlet with you, and will then bring you both home along with a generous number of the choicest fresh fish in a short quarter-hour." Here the little child said, "Jonathan, your intention is good, but what if I and my brother become too heavy for you?" Jonathan smiled and replied, "Oh, my dear little child, if both of you were 100 times as heavy as you are, I still could carry you quite easily." And the little child asserted, "Jonathan, that remains to be seen. Just try to carry me alone across and back through the inlet, which is hardly 50 fathoms wide, and we shall see how your strength holds up for us both." Jonathan immediately agreed to this test, and with the consent of James took the little child on his arm and waded with him across the inlet of the sea. The way across went passably, although Jonathan was greatly surprised of the heaviness of the little child. But on the way back the little child became so heavy that Jonathan found it necessary to take up a strong beam with which, by using it as a support, he was able to bring the little child to shore only with the greatest difficulty in the world. When he arrived there, he promptly set the little child on the shore where James was waiting, and declared, "In Jehovah's name, what is this? The whole world cannot be heavier than this child." And the little child smilingly agreed, "That is surely so, for you now have also carried far more than the whole world amounts to." And Jonathan, barely recovering, asked, "How am I to take that?" But James said, "Dear Jonathan, take the fish and come along with us on dry land to our home and remain with us for the night. Tomorrow you will be enlightened about this." Thereupon Jonathan took 3 containers of the choicest fish, and that morning accompanied the two home to Joseph, who received him with great joy, for they had been school friends in their childhood. Chapter 166. Why Jonathan carried more than the whole world. Jonathan gave the 3 containers of fish over to Joseph, with which he made him very happy, for Joseph was very fond of fish. He then inquired of Joseph, "My very dear childhood friend, do tell me what sort of a child you have. Surely he is at the most 2 to 3 years old, but he speaks as sensibly as if he were a grown man. And see here, I, who after all am able to carry 2 oxen under my arms, like you can carry 2 lambs, wanted to keep James and the little child with me for the whole day, and wanted to bring them home to you in the evening by wading through the inlet with them. When I made this wish known to James, the little child spoke to me and said, to my not small surprise, 'Jonathan, your intention is good, but what if we get too heavy for you?' That I, in the knowledge of my strength, had to smile at this question of childish concern is obvious. But the little child said thereto, that remained to be seen. I should attempt to carry him alone across and back through the inlet, to convince myself if he might not become too heavy for me. With the permission of James, I took the little child on my arm and carried him through the water. The way across was still bearable, but on the way back I had to take a pole on which I supported myself, and only with the greatest difficulty in the world did I get to the opposite shore. For truly, dear friend, you can believe me, the child was so terribly heavy that I actually believe the weight of a world lay on my arms. When I reached the shore, and had quickly given the little child over to James and was recovering a bit, I then asked James how it was that this child weighed more than a world. Here the child again said unasked that I now had carried more than if I had carried a whole world. Friend, your James has been a witness to all that. Now I am asking you about it, and declare, what in Jehovah's name kind of a child do you have? Truly, that belongs to the supernatural." Here Joseph cautioned Jonathan, "If you could be silent as a stone wall, contrariwise your life would be in great danger. I would indeed tell you something, my old most upright friend." And Jonathan took an oath and exclaimed, "By God and all the heavens, I would rather die in the fire 1,000 times than to ever betray you with a syllable." At this Joseph took him along on his favorite hill, and told him the whole truth in the matter concerning the little child, of which Jonathan did not know a syllable up to then. And Jonathan, as soon as he had heard this presented in a brief manner, fell down on his knees, and from the hill worshipped the little child, who just then was romping about in the center of the other 8 children, and declared at the end of his long prayer, "O blissful joy of joys! My God, my Maker has visited me. I have carried him who carries all the world and all the heaven upon my arms. O endless grace of graces! O earth, are you then worthy of such grace? Yes, now I understand the words of the child of God. You have carried more than a world." Thereupon Jonathan fell silent, and for an hour long could not bring forth a word from his mouth in his great happiness.